In this update, we've got more severe weather going to be building back in by the middle of this week, going into this weekend. But before that, we've got snow. Yes, snow that's going to be building into portions of the Northeast with the developing nor'easter for today, going into Tuesday. So we're going to break things down for you. Who all gets the severe weather, who all sees the snow, and who all sees the sun in the week ahead. So welcome back, everyone. How's it going? This is your April the 18th update. I appreciate each and every one of you out there. This channel is up to 109,000 followers, so thanks for tuning in on a daily basis to catch all my weather reports. And I do go live at times during high impact events. So if you hadn't subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it this morning. Let's go over, take a look at the overall breakdown on the satellite picture this morning. We've got those areas in purple up here in the Pacific Northwest with some winter weather advisories into portions of Medford, going into Eugene, even into portions near Salem here, with it, mainly the interior region is going to be seeing some wet snowflakes flying, but mainly some heavier rains are going to be along the coast, and all those heavier rains will actually push southward throughout the day, going into portions of Northern California, bringing some actually much needed rain for them. But you can see where the cold front's going to be lying. There's that behind it. We had a lot of big hail producers yesterday in the portions of Louisiana, especially going into Mississippi. We in fact had 2 confirmed tornadoes down there in portions of Mississippi, right along that boundary. But today we got snow to talk about, but this developing low pressure system out here in portions of the southeast, that's actually lifting northeast, tapping into some of that colder air for April standards. And we've got heavier rains into portions of Columbia this morning, into Charlotte. That extends all the way into Richmond, and then it goes into portions of winter weather advisories and to portions of the mid-Atlantic, especially as you get into the interior regions of the Northeast. We even have some winter storm warnings with a good 6 to 8 inches of snow potentially on the table for your Monday and Tuesday. So we'll break things down for you, but let's take a look at the overall big picture this morning. Out here in the Pacific Northwest, we actually have a weakening typhoon that's way out there in China. That's actually lifting and fishtailing back over portions of the Pacific. That's actually giving some much needed precipitation for the Pacific Northwest, but especially going into Northern California. And that's going to be the main culprit of all the heavier rains that are going to be moving back in for the week ahead. But yeah, there's the satellite picture out ahead of it with that developing nor'easter that's going to be pinwheeling up the coast today and bringing heavier rains along the coast, along the I-95 corridor. But it's mainly going to be an interior setup with some of that heavier snow as the midsection of the country really starts to wind down and clear out and enjoy some very nice days ahead before some of that severe weather kicks in, say Wednesday and Thursday timeframe. So let's take a look and break down this nor'easter. And as we go into about 12:30 this afternoon, here's where the rain is going to be. It should be entering the pictures of Richmond, going to Charlottesville, getting into the DC area. We could be looking at a little bit of a changeover, kind of a wet snow into interior portions of Pennsylvania here. But back behind it, we've got some heavier snows into portions of even Toledo, into Lansing. All the heavier snows will be back into, say, Marquette, along the Great Lakes here, as this continues to really amplify and deepen and head up the coast with this low pressure system. And as it does, it's going to continue to bring heavier rains as we extend into the evening hours, say about 10 o'clock time frame this evening. This is where the storms are going to be, ending in portions of the DC area. All the heavier rain will enter in portions of, say, Philadelphia, going into New York City, back into Hartford, or going into portions of Concord here. But it's mainly, again, going to be an interior setup into portions of Pennsylvania, going into upstate New York. Then some heavier snows will be back into northern sections of Michigan here, and along the Great Lakes here into portions of Wisconsin on the backside, with that northwest flow continuing to dump some of that heavier snows. And this continues to crank into the overnight hours as the rain will start to wind down along the I-95 corridor but continue up the coast into portions. You could be seeing a little bit of a mix over into Portland area, back into Bangor with some light to moderate rain showers. But as you get into the northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire, you could be looking at some heavier snows really building back in and cranking into the overnight hours on Monday night going into Tuesday. So if we take a look at the overall picture, yeah, we're talking a developing nor'easter for late April time. This is your Easter spell, folks. I mean, a lot of you guys are probably over the snow by now, but Mother Nature has other plans, as we have a strengthening low pressure system that's going to be cranking up the coastline here, dumping some heavier snow totals. So we're talking in Texas, 6 to 8 inches are likely above 2,000 foot range in the Poconos and the Adirondacks area and back into the Catskills. We could be looking at 10, some 12-inch totals are not out of the question in some of those higher terrain. But so yes, overall, we could be looking at some heavier snow rates of up to 1 to 2 inches per hour at times, likely going into early Tuesday timeframe. And this could produce some minor accumulations, even into, say, the Hudson Valley area. But yes, this is a pretty late season snowfall with some heavier and wet snowflakes on the table, and we could be looking at some significant impacts with some downed trees, some power outages, and some hazardous, treacherous travel in that area. So yeah, it's going to be a slushy mess as we go into later on today, going into the overnight hours, and this won't wind down until your Tuesday evening time frame. So definitely be on high alert for that nor'easter up there in the northeast. But here's the overall breakdown as we go into your Tuesday, as that nor'easter will continuing to wind down with that low pressure system, continue to move up the coast. It'll be going into portions of Maine, extending through that Tuesday, going into Tuesday night time frame. There's the cold front pushing well offshore, clearing all the way to the coast in Florida here. But behind it, yeah, we got more critical high fire alerts in portions of New Mexico, going into portions of West Texas, with all that heavier rains along the coastline here, and then some of those wet snowflakes with wet snow showers in the Intermountain West for your Tuesday, April 19th. And as we go into Wednesday, yes, that continues to be pummeled with that, weakening typhoon out there in China that will continue to rake rounds and rounds of precipitation along the coast, feeding into Northern California here with some welcome rain. So they're going to be picking up some pretty significant totals throughout the week, and all that will go into kind of your wet, sloshy mix into the Intermountain West in some of the higher elevations as we go into your Wednesday time frame. And then things start to get active going into the middle of this week, with more ridging building in. So yeah, all that cold air will be a distant memory. So as the winds start to turn around, by the time we get into, say, that Thursday time frame, things change in a big way. So as with those southwest winds, that's a much warmer wind. So eventually all that cold air will start to erode. All the snow will be melting by then. And then you got much warmer conditions building back in for a good chunk of the country, as yet we have another developing trough that's going to be diving back into the Pacific Northwest. Will bring more heavier rains along the coast, but it'll also setting the stage for more severe weather in the midsection of the country. As the winds turn around, as we have that southwest wind, those dew points start to crank up. And so that's always an indication on where the setup could be by the time we could into that Thursday time frame. And this is the depiction of some of the higher dew points, as we're going to be well back into the 60s into portions of Texas, into Oklahoma, into Kansas, along that dry line as it starts to get active going into your Tuesday time frame. But I really think it's about Friday time frame where I think it's going to be really amplified for your severe weather, as this massive vorticity really starts to dig in. You got the southwest winds with these little short waves. They're going to be diving across, tapping into all those warmer conditions, those higher dew points. By then the dry line really gets active into the afternoon. The Cape values go into the 2,000 plus range potential, and yes, we could be kicking off more severe weather as that surge in dew points will really lift up by then, going in all the way into portions of the Dakotas, back into typically your dew point anywhere above 55. That's usually the critical port where you could be looking at some severe weather tapping into that low level jet. And I think this is your dry line. It's pretty laid out here, and pretty a massive dry line with much drier conditions back behind it, and all the warm sector out ahead of it. That right there, just to the east of there, that's where the setting the stage for more severe weather as we get into your Friday time frame. And look at the index here. This far out going into Friday really amps up as we get into portions of West Texas, going into Oklahoma, into Kansas, but especially as we go through the central part of the country, going into Nebraska, into South Dakota, and to Iowa, even to portions of Minnesota here, looking to be a kind of a bullseye for that severe weather. And this is the write-up from the Storm Prediction Center as they see it right now. With that warm sector, we could be looking at a clustering of supercell development right ahead of that warm front. So definitely be on high alert as we get into Friday. And of course, we'll be fine-tuning this in the days ahead. But right now, this is what it potentially looks like as a pretty big active day for severe weather as we get into that Friday, April the 22nd time frame. And that a dry line continues to remain active. So I think we're going to be going into a more active period starting by the middle of this week, but especially as we get into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday time frame with that developing active dry line. And this is the setup as we could be looking at into your Saturday afternoon, with heavier storms out here in West Texas, blowing up along the dry line out here in western Oklahoma, portions of central Kansas here. That extends back into Iowa, with that severe threat slowly shifting off into the east by then. But out ahead of it, man, there's that developing low pressure system. This is a pretty another significant low from the northwest side of there. That's where all the heavier snow is going to be moving back into portions of getting into the Dakotas here, back into Montana. That fishtails back into portions of Wyoming here with this 979 millibar low pressure into the south side on the fishtail and the comma Q shape in the midsection of the country. That is where the line of storms are going to be within that warm sector. And you can actually see it on this low level jet with this little swirl right here, right along into Minnesota. That's where the low pressure system could be by the time we get into your Sunday, April the 24th time frame, with all the colder air and all the heavier snows just to the northwest of that. So that should push into portions of Canada by then. But to the south of that, out ahead of it, with that southwest wind, we have another developing shortwave that's going to be diving across the southern flank of the country. That could be setting the stage for more severe storms going back into portions of Texas, into Oklahoma, back into Kansas by the time we get into Sunday time frame. Because looking at the latest GFS severe threat going into Sunday, we could be looking at some severe storms out here in West Texas that could potentially move into North Texas into the evening hours. Much of Oklahoma looks to be under the gun for that severe threat going into Sunday. Of course, this is about 7 days off. So right now, this looks to be the timing for the severe storms by the time with that second system that's going to be coming across with that developing shortwave as we get into your Sunday time frame. But overall, it's going to be another windy week. I mean, April is one of your windiest months of the year, and it's going to be every bit of that with these developing systems going to come through the midsection of the country. You can see all the heavier winds off the northeast here. Much of the heavier winds with that low pressure system will actually be safely remaining offshore with this one. But all your heavier rains will be along the interior regions, and of course that snowfall that we talked about at the beginning of the video. But behind this, with this active setup, by the time we get into your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday time frame, for those 5 days here in the midsection of the country, we could be looking at some pretty significant winds, just on the south there of that low pressure system that's going to be developing by the middle of the week. So yes, we've got a lot of active weather to contend with in your week ahead. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video and definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.